I spent all day yesterday and today here up at our Trumansburg spot, our 6-acre spot, working on water systems and building more resilience in that realm. A lot has happened in the last 2 days, including going from a pretty deep drought beginning to a massive amount of rain overnight in a really aggressive way. And a lot of new things have been set up in order to receive that sort of pulse. I'd like to share notes in this video on how all that came together, what remains to be done. So stick around if you're interested in capturing rainwater, redirecting rainwater, and absorbing what can be pretty aggressive pulses of incoming rain periodically during a dry year. The last handful of work days have been focused on rebuilding the rainwater collection system off of our garage in this landscape. This garage has a roof area of roughly 1,000 square feet in total, which is actually a significant amount of potential storage. And we now have these containers online, and believe it or not, they all filled up in the rain from last night. I heard thunderstorms. They woke me up while I was sleeping around 3 or 4 in the morning. The weather called for 0.25 inches, a quarter inch of rain. We ended up getting just shy of 2.5 inches, so almost 10 times what was predicted. There was one really aggressive cell that must have come through and dumped 1.5 or 2 inches of rain in very short order. Pretty immense amount of incoming water for a dry landscape. In fact, sometimes I'll use a wheelbarrow as a measure of how much rain came in. This is what came in last night in just a few hours. And the landscape as of yesterday was bone dry, parched. I mean, dusty when you moved soil around. I think it would take a bit more even, slow rains to really recoup and rebuild the water in the soil. But for now, being able to capture that intensity of rain was a fun thing to get lined up for, and it feels like it worked out pretty well. Juan and I tracked down these IBC totes. These are 275-gallon tanks from an Amish market about 10 miles north of this space. It took us 3 truckloads to bring them down. They were filled with an ingredient for ice cream making. So technically an FDA-approved food stuff container, but it's a pretty interesting reminder that what the FDA calls safe for being inside of a human being sometimes is that. It was a real uphill battle getting that material out. Is that xanthan gum, guar gum, carabinum? I don't know, one of the weird ingredients in conventional ice cream. We had to end up using a shop vac and scrape a lot of this out, but we poured the goo out on the landscape, washed it out as best we could. It's pretty gross to think of what the FDA says we're allowed to put in our body in all the different ways sometimes. But now they're clean and they're in line. We have a gutter coming off of our really simple shed wing that we built last summer. I documented this in a video. I'll link to that here. This is a 13 by 21 foot structure that actually cost us $30 in total to build, which is a pretty nice deal. The roof metal we got for free in trade, and the rest of the members are round pole and simple structure. So the gutter we attached on there we found, and you can see the totes from the inside actually has a nice look. They protect visually from the outside. We're going to end up putting some plastic over them to protect them from sun. But there they are, 1,200 gallons of water storage just about. Since this is repurposed gutter, it's a little bit wonky the way it was mounted on here, but it's sturdy enough, especially following a relatively curvy roof line. And what I'm experimented with, I found this other scrap of gutter in the woods here, is rather than putting a downspout, I just dug or drilled some holes. I don't think those are big enough or substantial enough in order to accommodate really intense rain, so I might have to modify that some more, but it worked well enough for last night. The downspout on the south side of the garage runs through this length and then drops into yet another section of gutter. Here we used some black locust and made a rail system to support that gutter segment. and that worked really nicely. I wonder how well this will work for the winter. We'll probably have to retire this and have that section dump straight out to the side, but it routed all the water in really nicely. We have extremely simple ways that we filter incoming water. So this is set to be able to move a little bit, and I can take this screen, this is what came in last night, and tap it out. There's just a small section of, I don't know, 1/4 inch hardware cloth, 2 pieces, so it's easier to clean one of them. And so the incoming from the south side goes into this first tank, and the incoming from the north side goes into that tank, and ultimately they'll be able to equalize with each other. For now, I just drilled a simple hole and ran a straight section of pipe into this barrel, into this one, so as it overflows, it dumps into here and fills this one up. And likewise, this tank, when it gets to a full line, boom, falls into this one. And they'll be unified across the bottom as well. I have the bulkhead fittings ordered. We'll just have to wait for those. It's hard to describe exactly what was in my mind yesterday while we were working on this. Juan and I worked pretty intensely in the dry heat, putting all that together so that it was lined up. I kept feeling this nagging sensation in the back of my mind, saying, you better get the rainwater collection ready. You don't deserve to get rain until you have the systems to hold what comes in. It felt like there was this theme or this message that was coming through, and I kept hearing it. And last night, when after Juan and I parted ways, I felt inspired to keep working on building more elements for holding more water. And let me show you what happened with that part of it. We brought a bunch of IBC totes out to this area in the woods. We actually bought 8 of these in total. And last night I brought a truckload of pallets back from behind a store, got them a level pad and built them up 7 high. And today Juan and I put IBC totes on top of those, and that allows us to pull water from this pond system here in the woods. There's a simple solar panel, but we could also use a battery and a bilge pump that goes in the water, and that lifts that water and puts it up and into those tanks. And so now we have 2 tanks that are completely or nearly filled, so 600 gallons in there, that are high enough to be able to deliver to most points in the landscape. We did a trial run today. We would need to go up another 4 to 6 pallets in order to send to the farthest places, but this will be able to deliver water quite a distance. As of yesterday, this pond that we worked on this last winter, Juan and I rented a skid steer in February. I documented that in another video, and we got the rough sketch of this pond pretty nicely done. It was full in the spring and it leaked pretty immensely, so we let it dry out fully. And then about a week ago, I rented an excavator to renovate and finalize the design. I used that to track out the berm on the far end, bring that up 1.5 feet more, create a whole lot more shelving and structure in here. So now the space is ready to receive water in a real way. We have the berm and all the bare soil seeded out to a mix of flowers and kale. So hopefully with that rain from last night, that'll all get triggered into germinating. It's super silty right now because of bare soil and intense aggressive rain. It washed a lot of soil in, but I just mucked around in there all day and stirred that all up so that where there are leaks, it'll be drawing in really thick clay paste and hopefully helping to seal that. But pulling 600 gallons out of the water that came in here drew the water line down a little bit, but not much. I'm guessing last night around 5,000 to 8,000 gallons of water entered into this hole in the ground. I'm really hopeful that we get some more intense rain sooner rather than later so we can see how this fills. I think the berm is relatively level. There's a couple low spots here or there. It should overflow on the far end, but the space itself, if it were to be at capacity, would hold many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. It's about 1/8 of an acre here. And so testing this system of having a water tower, very low-tech, simple water tower, high enough that water from here can be delivered a short distance to these containers and then with gravity be sent to the high end of the property, that feels very compelling as a way to refill all of our tanks from this middle of the property location. I'm extremely thankful that that intense rain came through the way it did. I know in a lot of farming systems to have very aggressive, very fast incoming rain can be very destructive because bare soil agriculture, especially on hill country, can be eroded so quickly. But in this landscape, for the most part, the vegetation is thick and dense, the mulch is applied liberally, and the soil just soaked it all in for the most part. The fragility was presented in the edges of the pond, but that's inevitable because we just dug that recently. It's seeded out, hopefully most of the seed didn't wash in, but either way, it's great to have all that water. I did a rough calculation, 6 acres of land with 2.25 inches of incoming water, I think was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'm going to put it on the screen because I can't remember exactly, but I think it was 300,000 gallons. Just a great reminder to always be deepening and evolving our systems here for how we hold and distribute water. How do we capture the absolute most water we can from every roof area? How do we thoughtfully and meaningfully send that overflow to other locations that tend to be thirsty? How do we pull water up into proximal containers using sun energy when those water bodies are swollen from a pulse event, and then be able to distribute that stored water like a charged battery to other places in the landscape. This is our 13th year farming in this 6-acre space with no access whatsoever to a well. 100% of all of the farming we've done here has been from collected water, either from roof area or from swales in the earth or small hand-dug ponds, and now in this case behind me a machine-dug pond, and kind of always adding more layers of Rube Goldberg style redistribution of that water. How does it cascade from this spot and ricochet off of there and bounce over there and get stored, cached? Slow it, spread it, sink it is the name of the game. But in an ever unwinding climate picture where some years we get really abundant rainfall, some years 2016, 2020, this year up until last night was bone dry. By all accounts, such an aggressive rain should have been destructive and hard, but this landscape was really primed to receive that. We could have gotten 4 or 5 inches and it would have been a sweet experiment to learn from. So yeah, lots of things going on here, lots more water now in the landscape. It's time to start transplanting more and seeding our fall storage crops now that we actually have water to work with. Share some notes in the comments. What sort of things are you doing in your landscape to add a bit more resilience as things either dry up or get extra wet or just become more challenging overall? I'm always excited to read in the comments what folks are up to. Let me know what sort of questions you have or concerns, or if you've got ideas of ways to improve or deepen some of the experiments that are getting set in motion here. And wherever you are, I hope you're getting good, even amounts of precipitation. And if you are not getting that, you're building more and more systems to be able to hold whatever comes to you.